This episode of Lunduke Show is brought to you by System 76, those beautiful, attractive, very, very talented nerds over at System 76 shipping Linux on your computers. It's craziness. Find out more at system76.com. And Pogo Linux, they have Po Linux right there in the domain name. That's how you know they're good. They've been doing all sorts of crazy shenanigans with Linux on big giant servers, big storage clusters. It's friggin' fantastic. You can find out more over at pogolinux.com. And of course, the amazing, the sexy, the good smelling viewers like you. Today is kind of super groovy. I'm just going to bring him right on here. We've got Todd Weaver, the founder and CEO. I got that right? You're founder and CEO. Yes. We did that. All right. Founder and CEO of Purism. Todd, welcome to the show. I'm so glad we got to make this finally work. We tried to have shows like 2 months ago, and then earlier today we tried to record a show, and then, like, I don't know, the Lord above smote my house with an electrical storm or something, and then all of a sudden my router went crazy. And so we're doing it. We've actually got you on the show. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So, okay, Todd, my man, two things. First, great taste in glasses, man. I do believe that we may be wearing almost identical glasses. No, yours are slightly different. I have ones that are very similar to that. And two, killer beard. Now, give us the elevator pitch. What is Purism? What do you do? How long have you been around? All that good stuff. And then we'll dive into the meat and potatoes today.
Yeah, sure. And you'll be happy to know that I actually did research on cool glasses, and your photo came up. Then I bought mine.
That's how it works. You go to DuckDuckGo and you duck cool glasses. Up I pop. And if it doesn't, all the people that work at DuckDuckGo who I know listen to the show, please make sure that happens. All right, Todd, go for it, man.
So Purism, I started in 2014, and really, wanted to show that, hey, there's market interest in advancing the cause of privacy, security, and really around free software as it relates to hardware. And so I wanted to also kind of flip the script a little bit on the way that Linux is sort of advanced overall, which is that I wanted to make it where it's convenient and bundled together. So by bundling together hardware and software in Purism's Librem laptops and Pure OS, then we can harden and make it work in the most strict manner, so a user can just open up their device and have it just work. And so that's really one of the reasons that I started Purism. Another reason is because I actually wanted to advance into the supply chain the reasons that my belief system, right? So when we actually negotiate parts, we negotiate chips that are going to run free software, and it's mainline kernel support. So that way, if anybody wants to run any distribution, they can just simply install it on the computer, and it will.
You're good to go. Yeah, that's crazy idea. That's absolutely craziness. I love that, man. I think I mentioned this to you earlier, but I just think it's so rad. I've got you on the show. On this one show, we've got you on from Purism. It's sponsored by Pogo and System 76, two other hardware manufacturers that ship Linux on everything and work really hard to make sure that Linux is working right on the machines. And I love that there's multiple companies doing this. It kind of feels, I know we're still a long ways from going into every computer store or a Walmart or something and getting Linux running beautifully and on free software only on every laptop and desktop. I know we're not at that point right now, but it's such an improvement from where we were 5 or 10 years ago when it was hard to even just get friggin' Wi-Fi working on any Linux laptop. It's like we're living in the golden days. It's just so nice. So first off, thank you for working on all that stuff. I like to see more companies doing that, and I got to give you a high five for all that. That's fantastic. Now you're at this point. You're shipping computers. You're focusing on free software. What's next?
So we have a phone campaign, Librem 5 phone, and this is an area that just even highlight what you just brought up, where there's a lot of great hardware and laptop providers, and even servers and routers, et cetera, that run the Linux kernel. And so, but in the phone space, we're stuck, right? You're either on Android or iOS or doing something really fringe. And so the ability to just have hardware in the mobile space that will run Pure OS or Debian or Fedora or whatever, that is something that's completely missing. So for me, in starting Purism, one of the fourth goal we had was to advance towards the phone. So first it was a 15-inch laptop, then a 13-inch laptop, and then a tablet, a 12-inch.
So you're slowly shrinking.
Exactly. Slowly shrinking the screen size was sort of our goal. And then the fourth goal is to come out with our Librem 5. So we're launching that campaign, which basically is saying, hey, if there's interest in a phone that is not going to run Android nor iOS, but run a Linux kernel, then, hey, let's show that there's interest, because then we can fabricate the device. And the nice thing is that fabrication has changed so significantly that we don't need $10 million and 50,000 units to fabricate a phone. We actually need $1.5 million, and that's an attainable goal. Even with our core audience, that's an attainable goal. But then to be able to expand that, because one of the things you brought up about let's say the Linux kernel advancement overall in desktop space and these other spaces, is that one of the reasons that we can advance that with regard to the laptop is that it just comes bundled together. And so a convenient package makes it where, the reason that Android can dominate, but people don't go around talking about a Linux kernel in Android, is because it's just convenient. So the same thing we can accomplish is making a convenient bundle. So if someone is concerned about security or concerned about privacy, or a developer who wants control of the device, all of these things have the same actual layer story to the technology stack. So we actually target all of those, and then we can advance that cause and be able to fabricate a phone that a developer is happy about, or a parent who wants their kid to be able to have a device that they control and is actually communicating to just them, as opposed to communicating to Google or everybody else who can listen in.
Kids, I just want a phone that I can friggin' have a decent terminal on. I mean, how hard is that? Am I right? All right.
Well, actually, if that were the goal, then that's a lot easier. Yeah. So, but that does highlight our phone, is that we're really trying to focus on being hyper focused. Is that you'll be able to make a phone call, you'll be able to open up a web browser, and you'll be able to make a video call, voice call, IP-based call, which is why we partnered with Matrix. And all of those reasons make it where focusing on that allows us to then build over time a community where we can actually compete from the size of the app store that Google has or Apple has.
All right. I have like a million questions for you, in part because this is something that I want. And so I think about this a ridiculous amount. Okay. Yes. First, let's start at the lowest level. All right. So if I'm coming in and I wanna pick up a phone, or I want to support this particular phone, let's get this out of the way first. You guys are doing a crowdfunding campaign. You guys are hosting it over on your website. How much does it cost to be able to pitch into the crowdfunding campaign and that result in getting a phone?
So the phone price is $599, and so it's obviously
not bad.
It's a great price.
Yeah,
it was right in the wheelhouse of other high-end phone devices.
Geez. Yeah. It's much cheaper than, like, what was the new Google Pixel was like $1,000 phone or something like that. This is the $1,500. I might be able to convince the wife. That gets into a good range for me.
Yeah. All right. No, that is the range. Actually, it's interesting. We call it the balking point range. So if we were trying to get with the component parts, which we spent the last 18 months sourcing the hardware and figuring out how, what was that going to look like. And then being able to also advance the software pieces and putting in a timeline that's reasonable to be able to do that. But the price range for me was, we also put out a survey, and the price range that kind of hit that survey was around the $599 price.
That so seems we kind of totally reasonable.
That above that, then we might reach a balking point where someone's like, yes, I love everything you're doing, but that's $799. That's a little much.
Oh,
right?
dude.
So $599, we knew that we could build it and still have really high quality hardware.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a reasonable price range. So $599, people can pitch in for that. for what they're getting, let's start at the bottom here. So the big thing that everyone worries about when we're talking about open source and free software and phones is that friggin' baseband, right? So there's just not. How are you guys tackling that? Because I mean, can you have an open baseband? Can you make the closed baseband secure? Like, how do you deal with that?
No, that's such a great question, and that's really, to pinpoint, has taken us the longest period of time with our hardware research. So the baseband is separate than the CPU on our phone, which is literally the first phone that's going to have that, because we're not using Snapdragon that integrates the baseband with the CPU.
Oh, interesting.
And so by separating out the CPU and GPU, which is going to be the IMX6 or possibly IMX8 CPU, then we can have a separate baseband, which is actually the basebands that are used when, let's say, like a car just has internet connection. So we're using the same baseband chips.
Okay.
Which means that, and those run free software in the kernel. So we can have a separate baseband that runs free software. That, and then we can have a CPU that's separate, and GPU, of course, running all free software. So the source code's available for all of those pieces. That was the most time-consuming piece of trying to pin down really what we could source, what we could fabricate, and being able to get that into a quantity that would be an attainable goal.
So would that baseband, so the baseband's separate from the CPU, that's kind of rad all by itself. Is there any way for that baseband to gain access to the main memory that's being addressed by the CPU? No. That's for this. It just doesn't have access.
Correct. Does not have access.
That's friggin' rad.
Of course, I mean, that from a security story standpoint,
it's mandatory.
Yes, correct. That just is where now you're saying that solves all those pieces, right? You don't have to try some type of isolation approach or anything else. And then the other piece that's really important is that we're also building this where by leveraging as a matrix first, meaning it's IP based first, that the dialer is actually going to be included in the messaging application. So if you call, right, if I want to call you and you have a matrix ID, then that's what I call first over IP. So that means that I can just turn off baseband, right? And I can have it be a Wi-Fi only device if I want. And it's still it's exactly the same phone. You're just not using your cellular data. You're using Wi-Fi data. So it actually becomes where we can have a really true, distributed, federated phone platform.
And in many ways, I mean, that becomes kind of how I did phones for a long time. Like I didn't even have a cell phone for quite a few years because of that friggin' baseband and about a million other reasons that I'm sure constantly annoy you just as much as they annoy me. But like I use things like I've got like my pocket chips and I've got my little like DIY tablets I've put together with Raspberry Pi. Like I've tended to go towards Wi-Fi only devices, and then I'll use things like Matrix and Riot, which for those of you who don't remember, I did an interview with one of the main guys behind Matrix a long time ago, and it's basically a decentralized kind of federated peer-to-peer messaging platform, and then Riot is kind of like an implementation of it. But it's a really interesting platform, and instant messaging, and it does bridges to other networks, and it does audio and video conferencing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so we partnered with Matrix because their platform's fantastic.
It is.
All the source code's available from the server side. You can host your own. You can register your own IDs. The identification system behind it is actually just ideal. So that partnership allows it where that the phone is going to have, it's going to be IP based to begin with.
Right.
So that means that you don't have to be attached to a carrier. Now you can be attached to a carrier if you want.
Right.
That gets you, data from that carrier. So there's really three options you have with the Librem 5 phone. One is, I'm going to be just like everybody else, and I'm going to go to my carrier and I'm going to pay for a phone number and I'm going to pay for data. And then your phone will work and you can make emergency services calls and you can, and et cetera. Then option two is, I'm going to go to my carrier and I just want data only. And then in that case, you can use the Matrix Riot and you'll be dialing out a phone number.
Via
so
data.
It's a dial out, and yes, and then we actually have the ability to connect to PSTN, so you can make a phone call to somebody on a landline. And then option
That's
3
so
is
cool.
where you say, you know what, I don't want anything from a cellular provider, and I want a Wi-Fi only device. And in that case, you basically are have no connection or triangulation from any of the cell providers, and
Right.
you're just hopping from home to home or place to place, getting on the wireless, and you'll still be able to make landline phone calls.
You pretty much have really kick-ass PDA at that point. I mean, I kind of miss the PDA days in a lot of ways, because I mean, cell phones nowadays are basically like really big, powerful PDAs with a cell phone chip that's always watching you, because the baseband can see all and know all, and it just drives me crazy. But with this device, you could use it as like essentially a very powerful, essentially Debian-based PDA if you wanted to. I dig that. I dig that a great deal. Oh man. So, okay. All right. I assume it takes a standard SIM, sort of a setup. Or okay. Are you guys like particularly testing with any one carrier over another at this point, or is it just kind of agnostic?
We are agnostic right now. So
Okay.
the by supporting standards for carriers, then we know we can go into any carrier, and a user can just go get service. And the reason is because that we're not inventing anything in that space, right? This is how it works in the from baseband providers for all the other industries beyond cell phones. So being able to walk in from a worldwide connection to picking up a SIM card in any country and being able to have a carrier service is going to be supported.
Nice. Okay. Let's touch on the tech specs for the rest of the thing. What kind of screen resolution are we looking at?
It's going to at least be full HD, so 1920 1080. We're going to, of course, look
totally
for beyond that, but I don't want to overcommit to that.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, if we're going with a 1080 screen, that's already plenty for me. I mean, I do most of my work on this little pocket chip screens, and oh my God, they are a tiny fraction of 1080, and they still do what I need to do. So 1080, that'll do just fine. What else are we looking at here? How much storage and memory are we talking about?
So going to be probably 4 gig for RAM, and then storage, we're considering different choices there. 256 is probably going to be around where we're going to settle on.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah, because it's actually going to be potentially even user replaceable. So as we're pinning down the hardware specs, it's going to be this is an area that as we get feedback from individuals.
Yeah.
And actually, those 2 choices you just picked are actually the things that are easier to replace than literally everything else. So the
yeah, fair.
The RAM choice is going to be CPU bound. So we're going to just max out the RAM to the CPU.
Okay.
And then so part of that's going to be testing, because some cases, as we know with Entail specifically, that the published RAM spec is not always what the actual CPU capabilities are. In most cases, the RAM capabilities are greater. So we're going to test that. But the plan is to max out the RAM to CPU, and then find the largest storage that's able to fit into the case.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. The intention is we're not trying to to scrimp in any one area. What we're actually trying to do is build a device that is as powerful and high quality as we can, that also respects users' rights. And so this is something that, as you can tell from our laptops and even the laptop build quality, is that we really care about targeting the high-end hardware that will run all free software.
I totally get it. I mean, this has been a holy grail for a while now for people like you and me. I mean, how many times have we seen the possibility of a Linux phone, a true Linux phone? Go ahead and tease me again, Mark Shuttleworth. Tease me again, and it just doesn't hit. And when I'm looking at your crowdfunding campaign, you're trying to raise $1.5 million to go into production on these. That seems fairly reasonable. Do you remember how much the canonical phone pulled off? How much did they actually manage to get pledged for that? Well, it was a couple million.
Yeah, it was a $32 million campaign, and they closed $12 million. That was a failure, but obviously I have to put that in quotes. So a $12 million failure when we now, I mean, manufacturing has just changed so much in the last 5 years, and so to be able to fabricate a complete phone that we can ship to users is going to be $1.5 million as opposed to $32 million, and so it's a much more attainable goal, and so one of the reasons I'm really very pleased to be on your show is to then get that word out for the people who want a Linux based phone to be able to to back the campaign and say, hey, you know what, I want to see a future that actually has a third platform as opposed to just Android and iOS.
It's funny. I'm sure you keep tabs on it all, but what is it? The Zero phone, the little the little Raspberry Pi Zero with the the little basically candy bar phone that someone's kind of cobbled together with some various pieces and parts and kind of put together a kit around it. Even though it was just basically a candy bar. One step up from a dumb phone. It's not a dumb phone, but it's a tiny little screen and everything like that. That got people excited because any prospect of actual Linux, actual honest to God Linux on a phone kind of got people go, oh yeah, I want some of that. Oh, yes, please. And so now you're coming along and this looks like an actual phone that we'd be able to like show someone and be proud of. And it's not just like some steampunk-esque, we made it ourselves in a basement style. That's kind of exciting, dude. I mean,
very, very much so. For me, it's been, having the clear goals for us and the focus and being able to execute across those has been, I've been very, very happy with. And now we can get to the point of having a mobile device. So in the laptop space, there's choices, right?
Yeah.
In tablet space, there's at least some choices, but in the mobile space, there's no choice. And so being able to provide a product into that space is something that I have wanted to do since I started Purism. But I knew that we had to increment to actually getting to that point, meaning increment the supply chain communication, right? Being able to deliver, make sure that people understand what it is that we're about, being able to produce high quality hardware. So this is similar to our laptops, right? The device is going to be aluminum case, anodized black, high quality hardware, and by targeting that, we're not trying to scrimp and offer something for $59. We're actually really trying to build a product that people can be proud of.
Oh, man, that's super cool. I'm looking at it here right now. For anyone who wants to check it out, go to Purism, PURI.SM. Do you guys okay, all right. This is breaking my brain a little bit as I'm thinking through everything here. So if you are building a phone and you are essentially running Debian on it, which, Pure OS is kind of a Debian based distro. How reasonable would it be to put another ARM built distro on top of that, whether it's, Arch or OpenSUSE or whatever? Reasonable?
Oh, very, very reasonable. So the areas that initially, so we have a upstream first development path. So all of our developers are Debian developers.
Sure.
And so anytime that especially with the phone, which is going to be the area of a lot more software actually than it takes hardware. So as we're writing the software, specifically, let's say like the dialer application to be incorporated into Matrix, well, that's going to be pushed upstream in an upstream first fashion. So Pure OS was created so that we had a playground to advance some of those, specific to our hardware. But by pushing everything in an upstream first fashion, then that gets us where those other distributions will just work. So awesome. So then somebody will be able to run whatever distribution of choice they have when we're shipping the phone.
You're playing with my heart a little bit right now, buddy. I mean, it's the weirdest thing, and I'm sure you feel a little bit too, but being able to install different Linux distributions on your home computer is like it's like a hobby almost. You know what I mean? It's like something you want to be able to do. You see something new come out, you're like, yeah, I want to try that. Let's fire up the live ISO and see how this sucker rolls. Right. And the idea that I could do something kind of similar to that on my phone is tantalizing, to say the least. The idea that I could boot up Arch or OpenSUSE with maybe some work, but being able to accomplish it.
Oh, yeah. Right now, you're looking at it being a nearly impossible task, right? And
I've spent time on it.
And so, uh, and then, so being able to do that is one of the many reasons that I feel like the campaign and that product will be successful. Then the other pieces, of course, are bundling that together where the device is actually going to work, right? So being able to make a phone call and have a browser and check your email. And we're gonna be really focused on what we deliver, because what we can't do, of course, is just say that we're going to compete with millions of Android-based applications. But initially, starting out with a hyper-focused about encrypted communication and having it where you can make a phone call, check your browser, right, and do the basic things that you need, pull up a Maps application. Then we can advance the overall future of what mobile looks like. And so then, in maybe 2 years' time, we'll start to see a lot more applications being written, and really the porting effort of taking a larger screen and making it work on a small screen with fat fingers.
Right. Video out?
Yes, we're going to have Type-C USB that has video out, so you can actually run it as a desktop device.
So basically all that promise of having that converged device, being able to stick my whole desktop in my pocket, take it on the go, sit down, plug it in into my big screen monitor at home, I could do that with this.
Yes,
and
correct.
run.
And that actually is going to be an easier piece, because we have mainline Linux support and graphics support from the IMX6 and the Vivante GPU. So it really is, the effort is going to be putting where your mobile interface is the second screen that you're launching your desktop application as you would normally. So
awesome.
if you have it where a very easy approach is you disable the touch interface on the phone and have it be your desktop application. So the area of software development is actually making it where your phone interface will be working while your desktop interface works, right? And that's
cool.
That's the area that we're going to focus some effort towards, and that gets us to where the timeline is. The hardware is actually the shortest time frame to receive. It's actually going to be a lot more of that software development to making sure that those pieces of software will work.
So timeline wise, what are we realistically looking at here? I mean, realistically, check your gut. What's your gut tell you? You've been doing this for a little while. You know. Yes, how long until you think it's reasonable that people will have this in their hands, even if the software is not finalized to your liking yet?
Yeah. So because I've done it before and been through the pains of supply chain delays and the difficulty
it happens, man, to the best of us. Yeah.
And so we actually went round and round about the timeline, what we were going to deliver, triaging the things that were going to take more time. And so what we did with the campaign is made it a very realistic goal of January of 2019 for delivery. So that's a little over a year to receive your device. So
we're looking at, about a year and 3 months or so, something like that. So
from the campaign start, so of course we have 60 days of a campaign anyway, so that's 2 months eaten away.
True.
And then so from that, then we can bring in the hardware. We're going to ship development kits in June of 2018.
What does the development kit entail?
So that's really it's the motherboard and touchscreen behind the overall interface. So that way, if someone wants to develop on it, or they of course could use it. So that's more like the steampunk device is really.
If they want to 3D print a kind of makeshift case for it themselves, yeah. Okay.
And so they can, and so that's going to also help advance some of the development efforts outside of our internal development.
Okay.
And we post actually on the campaign page, kind of the top level pieces that need to accomplish with that timeline. And so by being realistic about it, it's kind of a double-edged sword. One is, if we said, hey, you can get that in, 3 months time or 6 months time, like what did it take to get the hardware, that we might potentially get more people that are like, hey, awesome, that's not that long to wait.
Yeah.
But we just wouldn't be able to deliver anything that would work, right? We'd basically be delivering a development kit.
Right.
And so what we did is we listed, hey, development kit for $299 within the 6 months period. And then that gives us another 6 months to harden those pieces of software that we really need to, specifically as it relates to, the communication. So the dialer, web browser,
right.
Email.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. One other tidbit I saw on there, and this just made me giggle a little bit, was hardware kill switches.
Yes.
All right. Walk me through exactly what's hardware kill switchable, because that's awesome.
Yeah. So we took from our laptops where we kill the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth as one switch, and then
Yep.
the camera and microphone that we actually sever the circuit, which is an important distinction about hardware kill switches. And then, so on the phone device, we'll have hardware kill switches, one of which for the baseband. So when you're not needing it, you can turn it off. And then,
Now, when you say turn off the baseband and it's a hardware kill switch, like sever the connection, cut the power entirely?
correct. Well, we're not sure yet if we're going to cut the power to the baseband, primarily because we need to then bring it back up right upon turning it on.
But
or if
the
we
connection,
sever the data connection.
Okay.
But so the baseband will be, but the end result will be that it will be a device that cannot send or receive signals. And then the same goes for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and then camera and microphone. And then we're toying with, do we want to, sever the GPS or not? And so because that would technically have to be yet another switch added, and we don't want to have this thing look like a bunch of dip switches down there.
Have you figured out what those switches, is it going to be like along the side of the unit where there's just a series of toggle buttons? How do you want to make it work?
Yeah, it's if you go back to like the original phones that had like the mute toggle on the side, it's similar to that.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a physical switch that you'd be able to toggle with a single finger to be able to.
I love that so much. That's so cool, man. That is so seriously cool.
It's really exciting.
That is really exciting. Okay, how far back does this? You guys are going for 1.5 million. See, you guys are at over 100,000 right now, and there's
over 100,000. Yeah.
Basically, there's 56 days to go as of the recording on this. That's let's see, how many days has this been running so far?
Well, we just started it.
It just started.
So whatever, 59 technically is when we started it, and so we're at 56 and already crossed the 100,000 barrier, which is great momentum to see early on, especially because we're crowdfunding. I mean, doing crowdfunding in the past and knowing it kind of comes in three waves. The first wave is the initial folks who pick it up because they want to talk about, hey, this is a new campaign. But there's been a lot of campaigns that have come and gone, and so the initial interest for a campaign with press or larger press or media tends to come in the second wave or that third wave. And the second wave is really like, oh wow, there's some interest, which we've crossed over, and that interest is anywhere between the 5 to 10% of your campaign, and we're well within that range. So we're growing great. And then if someone comes back and checks, tomorrow, they'll see like, wow, there's even more growth. So it's a great momentum to ride on. So that comes that second wave of that kind of campaign awareness, and then the third wave is once you get close to your funding goal, over 90% or so, and then everybody just starts piling on because they realize, hey, this is going to actually happen, and then it sort of creates this really big, that's the tipping point.
Yeah. Oh man. I want this to succeed so badly. Like most crowdfunding campaigns, I could take them or leave them. Even in the Linux space, it's like some of them are really cool. Most of them are, they're all right. Like they're either made by a company who clearly doesn't know how to do what they're doing, or they've got some weird things. But you guys have already done this a few times. I mean, not with phones, but with laptops and such. So you know how to put the hardware together. You've got the software expertise. You've already shown that you're the kind of people that like to put hardware kill switches into things, and clearly you know how to do that. Oh, I'm psyched. Well, all right. Everybody, seriously. So Purism, PURI.SM. That's worth checking out. So your default UI within Pure OS is GNOME, right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's basically, Debian with GNOME if you just want to run the stock OS. Oh my goodness.
It's very, very exciting. And I really appreciate, you getting on your show, because obviously your audience members are going to really enjoy what it is that we're trying to do. And I think that
gaining
that awareness.
No, dude. and joy does not cover it. We are jonesing for this hard. The people that watch my show are the kind of people that were like, oh, you know what? I'm not a big fan of Canonical, but I want their phone to succeed so I can buy 5 of them. And so we've been waiting. We've been wanting this. People have been clobbering together their little mini projects inside their homes to try and have a phone that approaches some level of what you guys are trying to pull off here. So this is fan-friggin-tastic. All right. Is there anything we're missing? Is there any big key bit that people need to know about that we haven't touched on? I mean, this is rad.
Yeah, no, I think the campaign page goes into great detail about answers a lot of the questions I think most people would have, and it even talks about a little bit more about what they would get, what their capabilities are. We have a pretty deep frequently asked questions section, so. Mostly it is go read about it. If you're excited about it, then back the campaign, because we need to actually change the future. Yeah,
I mean, seriously, because how sad would it be for all of us if this didn't get fully backed? I mean, it's there's only so many failures for the Linux phones that we can take in our hearts before our souls are crushed, and we just curl up in a weird little fetal position and cry for a long time. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
No, I agree. I mean, it's something that I am so passionate about that even one of the questions I answer is like, what happens if this fails? And I sort of have a passionate plea of, it basically shows that we have failed as a society, right? It's like, I mean, it's a bigger failure than, and the reason is because we have something to point to where we can see that, Canonical's Ubuntu Touch, which has, differences,
sure.
and pros and cons and we have differences in pros and cons, but, we can fabricate a phone for $1.5 million, which is significantly less than any ability to do that 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so being able to do that means that, hey, you know what, we can actually bring this and offer this up as a crowdfunding campaign that we should be able to succeed in the funding goal. And then it comes down to, we also are putting the call out for developers who are involved in these other phone efforts or who understand, the stacks that we're looking at, because clearly part of the phone campaign is going to be bringing on and expanding that staff to focus on the software pieces.
Awesome. Now, have you so obviously, like the Ubuntu touchy people out there, okay, they probably don't want to be called the Ubuntu touchy people, but the folks that are trying to keep Ubuntu Touch going, UB ports, the Halium project, things like that. Yeah. The cool thing with this is I don't see any reason why they couldn't just piggyback on this phone and say, yes, this is our reference platform going forward for a future phone, and we're just gonna put our stack on top of it, and then we have a continuing phone, even though all the old Ubuntu Touch phones are long since dead and were never that nice when they shipped. That seems fantastic. Have you had any conversations with like I think it's Halium project, right? Their phone project for having a standard base platform for their phone. Have you talked with them at all? Have you kind of looked at what they're working on?
Oh, I'm certainly aware and have looked at it. We haven't had any conversations with that group, but that doesn't preclude us from having interest in having those conversations. It's just that we are very interested. Part of this, and you highlight a big piece, which is that by selecting hardware and fabricating hardware that can support any of the distributions, and then we can rally all of those communities behind what it is we're trying to do, and then by pooling that effort, then we can actually advance what we're trying to do, rather than selecting some old hardware phone and trying to continue to keep that around. Is that we're actually advancing what we're trying to do. So the partnerships and the communication that we've had have been we keep the Free Software Foundation apprised of everything that we're doing. We also communicated with GNOME. We've been in some communication with KDE developers. We've advanced to a partnership with Matrix and Riot. Right. Yep. So we're trying to spread as far and wide as we can without losing focus of what we're trying to do. But really, the end goal is that if the community ends up looking at this and saying, "Wow, this is something that we really want to get behind," and then we can deliver the hardware, and then the users can, control the software and be able to.
That is the way it should be. That's the way it should have been from the start of smartphones, man. Oh, thank God. Woo. I have nothing else to say. I'm pretty confident my viewers know how I feel about this at this point in time. I'm so glad that someone's continuing this fight and continuing this work. Thank you, Todd, for keeping it going. And I really hope you don't fail spectacularly.
Yeah, so do I. Thank you. But
you're welcome.
I appreciate being on the call, because it's important, and I think that your audience is going to clearly just get it, and so I appreciate being able to sit on here.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna let you go, man. Everybody, you know what? Here's something we can do here. If people have questions about this phone, about the process, about all that good stuff, about the future of it, about anything, put them in the comments over on YouTube, or even better yet, hit me up over on Twitter, at Brian Lunduke. What's the Purism Twitter handle there?
It's at PURI_SM.
Okay. Tag the two of us, and I'm sure they would be more than happy to answer your questions. And if there's enough interest, we'll pull Todd back on as the campaign winds to a close, and we'll just pound him with questions until he starts to cry. It'll be fantastic.
I love it.
All right, Todd.
Right,
go forth. Best of luck, my friend. Hopefully, again, you don't fail and let us all down.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.